Well, hi, I'm Senator Jim Inhofe from Oklahoma. And I'm sorry I can't be there with you folks, but I enjoyed speaking with you at your international conference on climate change in Washington this past June. Well, as you know, I currently serve as the chairman of the United States Senate Environment and Public Works Committee. And also, as you know, the President and his administration are trying to implement a policy on climate change that the American public neither wants nor is able to afford. They tried to do this legislatively for 15 years. You know that. You were there, and I was there. And they were rejected. So now Obama is trying to do through regulations what he couldn't do through legislation. In his charge to finalize rules to reduce CO2 emissions, the president has deliberately ignored concerns of the states, job creators, of the United States courts, and of Congress. Now, despite this opposition and his clear lack of authority, the administration has pledged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions between 26 and 28% by 2025. The committee I chair, the Senate Environment Committee, has oversight over any climate deal that's considered. However, the administration won't even appear before our committee to explain how they plan to meet these goals of reducing CO2 emissions. This has never happened before. It's never happened that the administration has refused to meet with the committee of jurisdiction. So anyway, these commitments the president has made in Paris aren't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. The president's commitment is based largely on his so-called Clean Power Plan, which, amid all sorts of implementation uncertainties, faces lawsuits from 27 states, 24 national trade associations, 37 rural electric co-ops, 10 major companies, and some labor unions representing just under 1 million members. And while the president and his EPA characterized the power plan as the central component of his international climate agenda, it will have no impact on the environment, which the EPA did not even bother to measure. But there was an independent analysis that revealed that the power plant would cost $292 billion and would only reduce CO2 emissions by less than 0.2%. It would reduce the rise of global temperatures by less than 1/100th of a degree Fahrenheit and reduce sea level rise by the thickness of 2 sheets of paper. Now, other countries' commitments are kind of equally problematic. China would continue to increase, not decrease, but increase emissions until 2030. That's supposed to be a good deal, I guess. Russia's commitment allows the country to increase, not decrease, emissions 700 to 900 tons. And finally, India, they have a plan that has a price tag of about $2.5 trillion. That's $160 billion a year, that it expects developed countries like us, United States, to pick up, which the Indian environmental minister recently characterized as necessary reparations for India. The COP-21 summit is full of hot air, especially when you consider that the president's commitment lacks the support of his own government. In a bipartisan majority in the United States Senate voted last month on 2 Congressional Review Acts. They're resolutions of disapproval. They passed them both the Senate and the House, formally rejecting the president's domestic carbon regulations. The House followed suit right after the resolutions, and they're on the way to the president's desk. So, you know, we already rejected his power plan. That's done. Foreign leaders aware of the congressional opposition are attempting to craft a final climate agreement that, in the words of French foreign minister, and this is a quote, is valuable for everybody and valuable for the United States without going to Congress. In other words, don't go to Congress, just take the president's word for it. And we can't do it. What the international community fails to realize is that without the support of Congress, the president would be limited to making a non-binding political commitment with no means of enforcement or of accountability or longevity. As a Hofstra University professor of law, his name is Julian Q., he recently testified before our committee. I remember it well. Such an action, he said, is legally equivalent to the president giving a speech or stating at a news conference that he will make reductions in emissions. Well, past COPs have revealed that these meetings are not meant to produce anything substantive, and I promise you that the COP-21 will follow suit. Nothing's going to happen. Starting in early November, world leaders have been working to temper expectations. They know what we know now. But even this has proven to be a source of debate. Secretary Kerry stated that the Paris Agreement was, quote, definitely not going to be a treaty and would not be binding. And the French foreign minister went crazy about that. He responded that the secretary must be confused. Soon after, Canada said any deal reached on carbon emissions reduction targets at COP21 would not be legally binding. And Poland, they went further. They said that if anything is reached that undermines their country's large coal industry, they would veto it. Now, if they veto it, it takes all the wind out of the European Union's support. It has to be unanimous. Luckily, the American people they've already caught on to the president's climate charade. They understand. A Fox News poll from last week found that 97% of Americans don't care about global warming when it's stacked up against terrorism, immigration, healthcare, or the economy. But now an ABC News Washington Post poll just this week found that fewer Americans think climate change is a serious problem than they did last year at this time. A March 12th Gallup poll, that's a big one each year, and that's from this year, found climate change came in dead last of American concerns for national problems. And then another Gallup poll, which was released shortly after that, had global warming coming in dead last of environmental issues. Americans are concerned about, it used to be the #1 problem. I remember that so well. The polls reflected that was the #1 concern. Now it's dead last. So the bottom line is the American people have caught on. Then there's the statement Obama made 1 week after the worst attack on France since World War II, saying that climate change is a greater threat than terrorism. The president should spend more time listening to the American people instead of sending signals to the international community meant to save his climate legacy at the expense of hardworking Americans. As COP21 continues this week, I look forward to hearing what kind of cover-up deal emerges from this International Climate Conference. And you guys here in this room, as you always have, just keep it up. Our progress would not have happened without you. You're doing the Lord's work, and we're going to win this thing together, okay?